Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. Still not back in the pub. We're still in self-isolation, but we are here to answer your burning questions today. We've got Christopher Hammer, we've got Doogie Critchley. Now, before we get into this, obviously it's been a very difficult period for care home residents to see their loved ones during this period. So Nivea for Men, along with some famous faces at Liverpool, teamed up to help those residents stay in touch with their families. Here is a little sneak peek for our Football Daily fans of just what happened.
Hello, Jordan.
Hi, Noreen. You okay?
I like me football, but you get too old to go on a match.
You're never too old.
Yeah, lad,
Yeah, you got one of them on.
Yeah.
Love it.
So you can see the full-length version of that by clicking the link in the description below. But talking of Liverpool, it's going to be our headline question because we're shooting this on Wednesday. We don't know whether Manchester City beat Arsenal, whether Arsenal beat Manchester City, but nevertheless, this could well be the weekend that Liverpool are crowned champions of the Premier League. So important we talk about that because Peggy, You'll Never Walk Alone, said, where will Liverpool's season be ranked in terms of all-time greats? Now, we've spoken about this a fair old bit, but it has been an unreal season, hasn't it, Dukes?
Yeah, it's been absolutely remarkable. I mean, obviously they're in action tonight, Sunday, against Everton in the Merseyside derby, bringing an end to a 102-day break, so almost sort of a third of a year without playing a game. But it's worth sort of bearing in mind just how phenomenal their season has been. So obviously at this stage, there's 29 games played. They've won 27 of them, drawn one away at United, and that one loss away at Watford as well. And actually, weirdly, for such a phenomenal season, Liverpool weren't going into this lockdown in particularly good form. So they'd been knocked out of the FA Cup and the Champions League by Atletico Madrid. So that means they've only got 9 games left of their season. They only got the Premier League to play for. They'd only lost 2 of their opening 42 games up until the 18th of February. But in their 6 games after that, they had 4 defeats and just 2 wins. That was the Watford game, the Chelsea game in the FA Cup, and the 2 defeats to Atletico Madrid. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a season, it's been phenomenal. I don't think they've absolutely walked it statistically, but it doesn't really matter when you're 25 points clear at the time of writing. They've been clearly the best side. They've been clearly the most consistent side this year, and they thoroughly deserve to end that 30-year wait for a Premier League title. Lots of people say Man City are the far superior attacking side. They've actually only scored 2 more goals than them. They're on 68 as we record this to 66, and no one has conceded fewer than their 21 league goals. I think only Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid have conceded fewer in Europe. And no one's even particularly close to their defensive record as well. So they're actually 7 fewer than the next best in the top 6, which is Leicester.
Leicester.
And only Sheffield United, who are outside of the top 6 at current, come close with 25. So they've clearly been the best side. Statistics don't always tell the whole story, but they're actually 3rd for shots per game, 3rd for shots against, both against coming up behind City and Chelsea. But I don't think anyone would say that on the basis of this season, City have been anywhere close. They've lost 7 games already. That's more than in the previous 2 seasons combined. City have actually lost more games than Arsenal going into tonight. And Liverpool have had phenomenal performances all over the pitch. And yes, they'll be disappointed with the manner they went out of the Champions League. Yes, they'll be disappointed with the way they went out of the FA Cup. But to be honest, I think Liverpool fans will just be delighted to get this season over the line and this well-deserved title wrapped up.
Yeah, totally agree. Anything to add, Hamster? Any sort of players that have been standout for you or anything like that so far this season? Because obviously we made lots of noise about sorts of front three, Mo Salah, Trent as well.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to sound out some unsung heroes, and a lot of credit will rightfully go to Mo Salah, who has 22 goal involvements. Sadio Mane has 21. And they deserve said credit, don't they? Only KDB with 24 has been involved in more goals than the pair. Trent will rightfully attract a lot of headlines too. 29 Premier League appearances under his belt already. 2 goals, 12 assists to boot. And his per 90 numbers have been pretty frightening, haven't they, this season? His game has matured in every single way. So 3 tackles and interceptions, which is pretty solid considering a lot of criticism is levelled at him for his defensive contribution. He can have those lapses, can't he? He can be caught in the wrong sort of positions, but he more than makes up for that with what he brings to the game attacking-wise, which is 1.3 shots, pretty decent for a fullback. 2.6 key passes is obviously where he excels, his delivery, his cross-field balls. 0.6 dribbles, not really a strong part of his game, is it? But his athleticism means that he doesn't often have to sort of rely on trickery, I guess. And 0.44 expected goals and assists per 90, which is a sort of contribution that you normally find from an attacking midfielder. And I think we can all agree, he could probably play at number 10. He's a little bit like Marcelo in that regard, isn't he? Towards the end of his career, who knows? Maybe we'll see Trent playing as a number 10, like Dani Alves, for example, in the Brazilian Serie A. But aside from the obvious candidates, there's been some workhorses in that side, and we've, throughout the season, complemented the overall makeup, haven't we? And I often get pulled up for saying that, Liverpool, Klopp has built a side that is more than any singular part, but it does ring bloody true. I mean, Alisson, absolutely instrumental. Are they anywhere sort of reaching the heights that they're currently at without him? They've won 26 games. They've won 21 of the 26 games that he's played in this season. 3 draws, only 2 defeats with just 16 goals conceded. Pretty bloody frightening, isn't it? Jordan Henderson, he's had a remarkable campaign. And central midfield, I know there's Pat says that midfield isn't the hardest position to play at Liverpool, but I sort of defy anyone that's tried to play midfield to go along with that. And he's quietly had, well, not quietly, because obviously the press have given him a lot of credit, haven't they? A very good season. So 3 goals, 5 assists. That's his best return since 15 goal contributions in 14-15. And his numbers, I won't go through his per 90 numbers, but just solid across the board. And yeah, his incisiveness has improved a lot this season, which is what I really wanted to see from him. So 7 progressive passes per 90, which is only bettered by Trent and Robertson in the side. So he's not just mopping up, he's not just filling in judiciously for those attack-minded players. He's also utilising his very good technique to spring attacks as well. Who do you boys think then deserves a little bit more credit from this Liverpool outfit? Because Joe Gomez only got in halfway through the season, Joe, but he's quietly become a key component, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he only completed 8 full 90s between the 4th of August and the 10th of December. He was sort of in and out of the side, had a few problems with injuries, didn't he? But really since, a couple of injuries to Dejan Lovren and Joel Matip, he's come into his own second half of the season. He's played 12 of Liverpool's 13 league games, only missing in the, obviously, 3-0 loss to Watford, which shows how important he's grown to be. I do think that Jurgen might well look for another central defensive option come the summer, just as cover, and maybe to push Joe Gomez a little bit, but I'm sure Liverpool fans will be commenting saying, Joel Matip's very strong backup. Dejan Lovren does okay for us. So I don't expect Liverpool to do massive things in the summer either, just because everybody in the squad has been so consistent. Pato batters the likes of Gini Wijnaldum, doesn't he? But personally, I love watching Gini Wijnaldum. I think he's a super effective player, and maybe he's one of the sort of players that falls in that stats black hole. Where he appears to be not fantastic and ripping trees up at any single area, but is just incredibly consistent across the board, because this Liverpool team, they're just a machine. They just roll over teams, and I'm interested to see, now that Project Restart's happened, how they actually fare, because like Doogie said, they were struggling a tiny bit comparatively to how amazing their form was earlier in the season before the break, and they've actually got a little bit of a tough run comparatively to some other sides in Project Restart. They've got Everton away, they've got Man City away, they've got Arsenal away, they've got Chelsea at home, and we obviously know that home advantage now is massively less. Some of the home advantage figures coming out of the Bundesliga are phenomenal, actually. I don't know whether you guys saw that with fans, 43% of games are won by the home side. Without fans, it's only 22%. So although it's a small pool of statistics, that's quite interesting reading going into this Project Restart for some of the smaller teams and teams battling for the top 4 anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to rattle off a few of the records that Liverpool are going to break as well, because it is phenomenal. They need obviously 11 points from their final 4 home games to top the record for the most home points in a season. They need 19 points from a possible 27 to take the most points in a whole Premier League season, and they're comfortably going to beat, in my opinion, the 100 by Manchester City that was set in 2018. They need 14 points from a possible 15 away games to top the record for the most away points in a season. They only need 4 wins from their final 9 games to top the most wins in a single season. The records are just getting skittled by Jurgen Klopp, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see next season how he can perform, because it's all well and good kind of rickrolling a league, but it's hard to maintain that form across multiple years. It's going to be even harder to maintain that form when there's only a 2 to 3 week break between seasons and players do not have any time to rest at all. And we've spoken about in the past maybe a slight thinning going forward. I'm not sure whether he is going to add in the summer. Obviously, Timo Werner's not joining, but it's not the deepest forward selection options for Jurgen Klopp if it is only a 2 to 3 week break, is it?
Well, I wanted to ask you boys about that. About, Liverpool, will they strengthen in the summer? Obviously, missing out on Timo Werner is a huge blow considering how protracted, how long that pursuit of him has been. And Klopp has courted him for a long, long time, hasn't he? And that signing felt like the sort of signing that ensures a degree of quality, a degree of legacy, right? Because that front line would have just been extraordinary. If they don't get him and one of their direct rivals strengthen and City go about their business, trying to get names in ahead of a potential ban, all of a sudden the playing field looks a little bit more level. So do either of you, maybe starting with Duke, because you're not spoken a while, bro, do you think they're going to add, and where do you think they should add?
Having seen the Werner news, I really don't think they are. I mean, I think Liverpool have got quite a lot of faith in their younger players, the likes of Curtis Jones, who we've seen have big impacts on occasion this year, Harvey Elliott as well, Nico Williams as well, the right back who's coming through. And supposedly Klopp is a big fan of using these players going forward. They'll also be losing some wages with Adam Lallana going at the end of this year, and he's on £100,000 a week. So, I mean, there might be a little bit of movement in there, as in movement in their finances to get someone over the line. But I feel like if you've turned down the chance to sign Werner, although it hasn't necessarily been confirmed, at least when we're filming this, I just don't think they're in the position to do that, really. I really think the Liverpool fans that I've spoken to are really sort of quite upset that they didn't go for Werner. I feel like at 50 to 60 million pounds, that's an absolute snip, really.
By the way, I do think the FSG out thing is absolutely pathetic that is going around on Twitter.
I haven't even seen that.
They've transformed the club's transfer policy. They're run extremely well, and because they've not signed Timo Werner, every 14-year-old wants Liverpool out, wants FSG out.
Yeah, that's absolutely mad. I mean, football Twitter, said it before, should probably be ignored on most occasions. But I probably would look at left back as an area that they should probably look at just in terms of depth. I mean, Andy Robertson's now played 89 games across the last 2 seasons, and we haven't even finished this one. There's quite a few names that they've looked at Ben Chilwell before. They're obviously not going to go for him this summer with that fee on his head as well. But Tagliafico is an option. Sergio Reguilon. But then the difficulty is, are these players going to want to join Liverpool as a clear backup? Probably not. So they could look at someone like Vindal from AZ Alkmaar, or maybe even Vendel from Bayer Leverkusen. But it's going to be difficult to find players that are prepared to be very much an understudy to Andy Robertson. So they're in a strong position, and I think they'll be fine even if they don't strengthen. But we've seen in the past that if you don't continue to rotate your roster and help out weaker areas of your squad in a time of strength, you can be quickly caught up. I mean, Man United didn't do that for a fair few years before Fergie left, and the demise was pretty strong.
I do think, though, that the gap is significant enough they can probably get away with it for at least one season. They're so much better than everybody else in the league right now that I think they've got at least 12 months to kind of get their ducks in a row and find the right players. And if Timo Werner I don't know the reasons he didn't go to Liverpool. Obviously, there were WhatsApp conversations and calls happening, weren't there, according to the German media anyway, between Jurgen Klopp and Timo Werner, and that deal didn't get over the line. But that must be because they've got an idea of who they're going to sign in the future. And I'm not sure that Timo Werner potentially aligns with that strategy. I think the strategy is probably going to be more trying to sign younger, I know that Timo Werner is young, but younger, more affordable players, sort of in the £20 million region, especially during the COVID crisis. They just don't need to spend £60 million this summer. There's no real desperation, so I think they'll probably be targeting players of a similar age to Timo Werner, but maybe half the price, that can come in as backups, and they can take a shot at being a superstar in the future. And if they don't, then they can sell them for a similar fee. I think they're probably going to try and play risk-free in a market that is going to be extremely risky. Maybe take some punts on the likes of Buendia if Norwich go down, get him for a cut fee. Probably more likely to be willing to sit on the bench. Maybe even have a look at Jamal Lewis if Norwich go down in the fullback area, and just be smart like that. Play it a little bit smarter. And I think you'll see a lot of clubs do that, just because £60 million is a lot to spend post coronavirus, and it's probably the reason that Jadon Sancho to Manchester United is on the rocks. And there's the Man United drop. Everybody says I do it once a week. We may as well touch on one other player that's been linked to Liverpool this week then, because it was also a question that was sent in by SBYT Official, who says Coutinho wants to go back to Liverpool. Of course, this is stemming from reports that he's asked Klopp to return and bring him back to Anfield after a fairly unsuccessful spell at Barcelona and obviously on loan. What are your thoughts on that, Dookie? Philippe Coutinho's return, do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's even possible? What could happen there?
I think Liverpool, as good as Coutinho was at Liverpool, and people have slightly forgotten that in the last couple of years, like Coutinho was clearly one of the best players in the Premier League when he left. Liverpool have actually evolved into a much more cohesive unit and a more effective attacking outfit without him. I don't think they look their best when they play 4-2-3-1. And Coutinho doesn't work in a midfield three. We've seen that at Barcelona. And definitely wouldn't work in Klopp's pressing heavy system. So for me, it doesn't make any sense to sign Coutinho. Even if it's on loan, I'd rather give those minutes to younger players coming through who could fit my philosophy better going forward.
I don't necessarily think there's any problem if it's on loan. That would be my feeling. If you're going to get a player of Philippe Coutinho's quality on loan, you know that if he's willing to join you, he's probably willing to sacrifice a fair few minutes, because he must look at that front three and realise that it's pretty much impenetrable at this time. And he was so impactful at Liverpool that he can probably get a fair few minutes under his belt. I just think that if he's on loan, then it's almost kind of a no-brainer for me to take Philippe Coutinho back, and I think Liverpool fans would probably welcome him back as long as he didn't cost a big fee and his wages weren't sky high. Chris, what are your thoughts on the Philippe Coutinho situation? If you were a Liverpool fan, would you take him back?
No, and I think for reasons that Doogie visited in a previous point, he would cost an awful lot of money. He's being paid a fair whack per week, isn't he? Which is one of the reasons that sort of Bayern didn't want to make it permanent, because they believed, his contribution didn't really measure up to his wage. And there are other options on the market, viable options that are going to be a third of the price. You said Buendia, I've got him written down here as well. I think he'd be a sensational purchase for any sort of top 10 club. I mean, the guy's only got 7 assists, and for some reason was getting gypped from Falk for not having scored a goal, despite completing 3.3 dribbles and 2.6 key passes a game for a side that are neither good defensively or attackingly. So I'm not sure what Falk was on about there. I have seen him linked with the likes of Aouar from Lyon, and Lyon are pretty cash-strapped themselves, and they've had a pretty poor season, haven't they? I think they finished 7th, memory serves me correctly. That could be wrong. He contributed to a goal still every 3 and a bit games, and it's just a sensational footballer, isn't he? Just an outstanding talent. I think it's right to entrust Curtis Jones with some more minutes. For me, he is the standout, or at least has been the standout when I've watched the League Cup games. Harvey Elliott probably still has a bit more maturing to do. But the fact I've seen them linked with the likes of Ngakia as well, a right back from West Ham on a free, promising youngster, plays right back, would suggest that we are in for sort of conservative summer. So Coutinho just feels like, I need a headline. I need some clicks. So yeah, not feasible for me. I wanted to ask you boys, do you think that Liverpool, their title ambitions would have bottomed out at any point without one singular player? Everyone spoke about Salah, Van Dijk. Do you buy into that? Do you think they would have been able to deal without those big hitters, or are they just one injury away from needing serious cover?
I think it would depend how big the injury is. I think an injury to Van Dijk would be absolutely monumental. If Van Dijk had got injured in August, then it would have been absolutely monumental. But he's such a machine, isn't he? I feel like Van Dijk never looks like he's going to get injured. Like he never looks like he's going to go into a tackle and come out on a stretcher. So I think personally they would have been fine, and I think they would have won the league even if they've had a single major injury. They're so much better than everybody else. But Van Dijk is the one I think that could have derailed the season if he'd have been injured. Everybody else, I think they would have found a way to win, especially that front three. At times they were able to play, just Mane and Salah up top and still get results. So I think they're that good. They could have dealt with an injury fairly comfortably.
More to come from Naby Keita and Minamino as well, right, dude?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Minamino has been slightly unfortunate with how coronavirus has played out. Just as he was starting to slowly adapt to Liverpool, the crisis hit, and he hasn't been able to get any games under his legs really. But to be honest, the Minamino signing I think is one for more like 2-3 years time, and if it doesn't work out, they got him for so cheaply that they'd expect to be able to sell him on for a profit. That's what Liverpool have done so fantastically well over the last few years, is turn profits on mediocre squad players like Solanke, that keeper that went to Leicester whose name escapes me. They got about £8 million for him as well. So they've sold really effectively.
Danny Ward,
that was it. Well remembered.
Danny Ward.
Going back to the injury question, they obviously survived large parts of the season without Alisson. But I do actually feel like there's quite a big drop-off between your Mane and Salah's to your Origi and Shaqiri, which is why I was so keen for them to get Werner over the line if they could have. Shaqiri in particular just doesn't look in favour whatsoever after a pretty promising 18-19 campaign. It's slightly bizarre. So if coronavirus hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have been surprised if one of Shaqiri and Origi had left this summer and Klopp had looked to bring in another winger for depth, if not Timo Werner. But now I just don't see that happening.
I just have such big faith in Jurgen Klopp. I think I just trust him with anything now. That, like, if I was a Liverpool fan or a Liverpool player, I trust whatever he says is gospel.
How was he when you met him?
Yeah, just a legend. He's just like immediately you're like gravitating towards him. You can see that he's sort of like the hub of all of the conversations. Everybody kind of hangs on his every word, and he's such a good storyteller. He's so personable that you can imagine being in the dressing room and just wanting to do whatever he says, just buying into it immediately. So yeah, obviously just fantastic manager.
You're a Klopp disciple.
I am sadly a Klopp disciple now. Do you know what? Just want to rattle off one of the quick fire questions. May as well jump straight into that because it involves Timo Werner, and we were discussing him just now. This quick fire question was sent in by Captain Gooner. He says, was Werner right to withdraw himself from Leipzig's Champions League campaign? Obviously, he's not going to play any more games for Leipzig in this season's Champions League in order to be fully fit for Chelsea when that move is officially signed off. So, Dukes, what are your thoughts? Timo Werner won't be playing the Champions League for Leipzig.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Nagelsmann or RB Leipzig, I'd be really quite pissed off with him, I think. I mean, he's played phenomenally well for them for 4 years, but they have nurtured his talent somewhat. They've given him a massive stage to perform, become a German international regular at that level as well. But from his perspective, I can see why. He's just had the move of his career so far. You want to be fully fit and firing, starting pre-season pretty much as soon as this season ends with Chelsea, because I really don't think there'll be that long a break. And the Champions League schedule's just been released, and any team's going to have to play, I think, a quarter-final, semi-final and final in the space of a week. So the chances of getting injured are quite high. So whilst I don't blame Werner, I would be pretty disappointed if I was RB Leipzig, because realistically they're not going to win the Champions League, which they had an outside shot of doing this season, to my eyes anyway, without him.
Wow, big statements. Big statements. Outside shot Leipzig. Absolutely zero chance in my book. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, that went straight over my head. What t-shirt are you wearing? Is that new, Doogie?
This is a Boca Juniors Riquelme number. But no, not particularly new.
Sexy.
What a classy player he was.
Hamster, have you got any thoughts on the Timo Werner situation?
What do you say after a man announces that with Timo Werner, Leipzig might have won the Champions League? Outlandish stuff.
I mean, they were dark horses.
No, I like it. It's a bold statement. I'm just still so stunned that he's opted to join Chelsea. Chelsea have come from absolutely nowhere to really cement themselves as a Champions League club, haven't they? Like, it was an outside shot, them finishing in the top 4 this season. I think we all agreed that 5th or 6th was more realistic. So they've cashed in on overperforming, which is always wise in my opinion. Like, they're carrying on that momentum. So yeah, great for Lampard. And if they also secure the likes of, I think this means that they're not going to go for Havertz, right? But if they land one more big target, then all of a sudden, yeah, the gap between them and, I mean, Leicester is obviously closed, but them and City, you know, they start to creep up on the quality levels of Manchester City. Obviously, Pep makes up for that, but yeah.
Pretty exciting one, though. Right, Matthew CM21 says, who are the best loanees that deserve a chance at their parent club after this season?
Bloody hell.
Immediately jumping out at me is Achraf Hakimi at Borussia Dortmund. I think probably the outstanding loanee in world football right now. Probably the outstanding, alongside Trent, young right back in world football. I'd be really surprised if Real Madrid don't bring him back and give him game time over Dani Carvajal and look to move on. One of the kind of surplus to requirement fullbacks. They've got about 200 of them at this stage, haven't they? So move one of those on and bring Hakimi back, because he's just putting up the same numbers as Trent, and it's just flying under the radar. He's putting up the same numbers as Trent in a worse side. Yeah,
for sure. He's been phenomenal this year. I mean, there's quite a few Real Madrid players that you could plump for as well. Like Odegaard's played very well at Real Sociedad. Ceballos, he hasn't really got going at Arsenal due to injuries, but I'm excited to see what he can do to the end of the year. Kubo's looked pretty useful at Mallorca as well, for a very, struggling Mallorca side. So Real Madrid just have a plethora of talent out and about. I'm trying to think. I mean, I would have said Icardi had he not signed for PSG permanently last week. I think that
would have been cheating.
That would have been cheating. Chris, have you got any others? I can't really think.
Mate, we went through the same sort of brain process there. I went straight to Real Madrid, Barcelona.
I won't talk about him, Hamster, but what about Dean Henderson? Do you think he potentially deserves a shot at Manchester United in the sticks next season?
I'm not as infatuated with him as a lot of Manchester United fans. I've just come to accept that he's a very, very good goalkeeper. But the idea that he's going to displace David De Gea over the course of a season, to me, is still crazy. If he was to come back and they were to say to Dean Henderson, you're going to play in every cup competition, and he sort of accepted that, I would see that as a sensible move, I guess. But even then, he's probably going to demand, some sort of guarantee that he plays X amount of domestic games. So that'll probably see him at Sheffield for another year, right? I'm trying to think of other leagues. Obviously, we spoke about the Championship last week. Not last week, the week before. Sorry, I've been off, haven't I? So I don't want to revisit that. Is it Ben White at Leeds?
Oh yeah, from Brighton, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's probably due some minutes at Brighton. And defensively, they're not fantastic, are they? So yeah, maybe Ben White. But that's a great question. Probably deserves a better answer, to be honest.
Yeah, probably deserves almost a full episode on that, because it's a very interesting topic, and there's lots of names that I'm sure we've missed out. So if there are any loanees that we've missed out that you think deserve a chance at their parents' club, please put them in the comments below, and we'll endeavour to talk about them in coming weeks. Right, that's pretty much the quickfire questions. So let's do one final personal question before we wrap up then. This one from Blues Canadian. What junk food have you eaten during this pandemic?
Oh,
I feel like all we do on personal questions is speak about food nowadays. Go on, Doogie. Your lips are already smacking. I can hear a bit.
I have been tucking in, actually, because I feel like I haven't spent that much money on other stuff, except for the occasional football shirt. So we've definitely been doing one takeaway a week at my girlfriend's house, and we've been smashing up the Indians, the Chinese, the pizzas, the works, really. I found a new pizzeria near where Grace lives called Pizza Oregano, which was perfect the other night.
Yeah, that's good.
So no, I've really been tucking in, but I've also been, I've been trying to balance that between trying to get a bit fitter as well. So I've been sort of burning the candle at both ends, as it were.
Have you what have you been doing with that? Your egg and cress sandwich in the morning?
I know, my egg and cress and my pint of milk. I know, I've been lost. I didn't even get to say goodbye to all those places around the office. Yeah.
Never seen a man take down a packaged sandwich in 17 seconds at 8:30 in the morning before you, mate. What was the question? Junk food. Do you know what I've discovered? The Chicago Town pizza. I think it's Chicago Town.
The thick bases that you can buy frozen from Sainsbury's.
Just as good as Domino's. I've said it. And they're a £5. And Domino's
No,
are about
no,
38 quid a pizza.
Right.
Doogie, I'm telling you, mate, there's minimal difference.
I feel like hanging up this call, to be honest.
What am I hearing?
Savvy, if anything, so.
Are you talking about the thick crust ones?
I feel like I'm talking to a thick crust. Mate, I'm going to go and fetch the box. I'm going to go.
Gosh, right, well, he's fetching the box. I think mine's probably been fudge bars. You know, little fudge bars you can buy in multi-packs.
Okay.
Oh my God, I've been rattling through fudge bars.
Oh, he's back with his box.
It is... How can you say that's better than Domino's? Or as
It's
good as
just
Domino's?
as good as Domino's. You've been tricked, mate. Domino's are an absolute rip-off, and I will not be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, it's definitely overpriced, but it doesn't change the fact it's good pizza.
Price is factored into the whole experience. Do you get this for a £5, or do you get a Domino's for 20 quid?
Are you comparing... Forget the price, the taste
The taste,
is a long shot off.
I think it's just as... It's fine.
I'm down in tools.
There's minimal difference.
I'm down until this is outrageous statements. Either way, I think both of them. Papa John's is coming for you. Papa John's,
What?
on occasion.
Papa John's is tasty.
Have you actually... The Papa John's guy is an absolute tool, though.
Is he?
Yeah, the Papa John. Absolute Trump fanboy.
I've never met Papa John, it has to be said.
You're a Republican.
Don't even know what Papa John's does for a living. He probably doesn't even make pizzas anymore, does he? He's just like some CEO.
Oh, does anyone know Papa John's hobbies? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, right. It's spiraling out of control, so let's wrap it up there. As I said at the start, make sure you click the link in the description below to go and watch that Nivea film. It's well worth it. Do you anything else to plug today?
Yeah, why not go over to EFD and check out Friday's Continental Club and then yesterday's Football Pyramid. A very special episode, I'll say no more, between Joe and Zach Jalab. Check it out.
You better not have lost again.
No spoilers, mate. No spoilers, so you have to tune in for that one. Anything for you to plug, Hamster?
Just the usuals, mate. So obviously this is out Sunday. So what we're saying on EFD, top 10. Go and watch that. I actually watched the David Beckham Everything You Need to Know today. Scribed by McCubbin, edited by Danny Pape, and it was exceptional. So go and watch that as well.
Yeah, go and watch that. Also, we've got the Football Social back on your screens, so make sure you tune into that this afternoon. We will be live covering Liverpool's potential title win over Everton if the result midweek that we're filming before that happens. So yeah, tune in for that. Thanks very much for watching. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.